Lingue originali.
Lingue originali, il primo appuntamento della settimana, come sempre nel corso di questa prima stagione, è quello dedicato alla lingua e soprattutto alla letteratura in lingua inglese. Il vostro lettore è Marco Piovaz, il vostro, se volete, facilitatore, chi vi parla, Dario Albertini. Ci avviamo, come già detto, al termine di questa prima stagione. Tornerà poi Lingue originali con i suoi 3 appuntamenti dalla prima settimana di ottobre. Ci avviamo a concludere quindi ancora con Edward Morgan Forster, per la precisione, è A Room with a View, camera con vista, da cui il film diretto magistralmente da James Ivory. Ripercorriamo velocemente la trama? Dai. Per Lucy Honeychurch il soggiorno in Toscana è l'occasione per una fugace avventura che le fa assaporare una spontaneità di emozioni e una naturalezza di rapporti per lei del tutto nuovi. Al rientro in Inghilterra acconsente a un rassicurante fidanzamento con Cecil Vyse, londinese sofisticato e snob. Delusa dalla freddezza e dall'arroganza del partner, è sempre più divisa fra le aspettative del proprio milieu e le sue più appassionate aspirazioni, sarà costretta a fare i conti con l'educazione borghese e con la repressiva morale vittoriana. Sceglierà infine di seguire il proprio cuore, sfidando le convenzioni sociali. Si potrebbe dire che mondo era e mondo è. Cosa ne dite? Lingue originali, questo è l'appuntamento dedicato alla letteratura in lingua inglese. Linea e microfono a Marco Piovaz per un altro estratto da Camera con vista di Edward Morgan Forster, titolo originale A Room with a View.
Lucy was puzzled. She was again conscious of some new idea and was not sure whither it would lead her. If no Baedeker, said the son, you'd better join us. Was this where the idea would lead? She took refuge in her dignity. Thank you very much, but I could not think of that. I hope you do not suppose that I came to join on to you. I really came to help with the child, and to thank you for so kindly giving us your rooms last night. I hope that you have not been put to any great inconvenience. My dear, said the old man gently, I think that you're repeating what you have heard older people say. You are pretending to be touchy, but you're not really. Stop being so tiresome and tell me instead what part of the church you want to see. To take you to it will be a real pleasure. Now, this was abominably impertinent, and she ought to have been furious. But it is sometimes as difficult to lose one's temper as it is difficult at other times to keep it. Lucy could not get cross. Miss Temerson was an old man, and surely a girl might humour him. On the other hand, his son was a young man, and she felt that a girl ought to be offended with him, or at all events be offended before him. It was at him that she gazed before replying. I am not touchy, I hope. It is the Giottos that I want to see, if you will kindly tell me where they are. The son nodded. With a look of sombre satisfaction, he led the way to the Peruzzi chapel. There was a hint of the teacher about him. She felt like a child in school who had answered a question rightly. The chapel was already filled with an earnest congregation, and out of them rose the voice of a lecturer, directing them how to worship Giotto, not by tactile valuations, but by the standards of the spirit. Remember, he was saying the facts about this church of Santa Croce, how it was built by faith in the full fervour of medievalism, before any taint of the Renaissance had appeared. Observe how Giotto in these frescoes, now unhappily ruined by restoration, is untroubled by the snares of anatomy and perspective. Could anything be more majestic, more pathetic, beautiful, true? How little, we feel, avails knowledge and technical cleverness against a man who truly feels. No, exclaimed Mr. Emerson, in much too loud a voice for church. Remember nothing of the sort. Built by faith, indeed. That simply means the workmen weren't properly paid. And as for the frescoes, I see no truth in them. Look at that fat man in the blue. He must weigh as much as I do, and he is shooting into the sky like an air balloon. He was referring to the fresco of the Ascension of Saint John. Inside, the lecturer's voice faltered, as well it might. The audience shifted uneasily, and so did Lucy. She was sure that she ought not to be with these men, but they had cast a spell over her. They were so serious and so strange that she could not remember how to behave. Now, did this happen or didn't it? Yes or no? George replied, It happened like this, if it happened at all. I would rather go up to heaven by myself than be pushed by cherubs. And if I got there, I should like my friends to lean out of it, just as they do here. You will never go up, said the father. You and I, dear boy, will lie at peace in the earth that bore us, and our names will disappear as surely as our work survives. Some of the people can only see the empty grave, not the saint, whoever he is, going up. It did happen like that, if it happened at all. Pardon me, said a frigid voice. The chapel is somewhat small for two parties. We will incommode you no longer. The lecturer was a clergyman, and his audience must be also his flock, for they held prayer books as well as guidebooks in their hands. They filed out of the chapel in silence. Amongst them were the two little old ladies of the Pension Bertolini, Miss Teresa and Miss Catherine Allen. Stop, cried Mr. Emerson. There's plenty of room for us all. Stop. The procession disappeared without a word. Soon the lecturer could be heard in the next chapel describing the life of St. Francis. George, I do believe that clergyman is the Brixton curate. George went into the next chapel and returned, saying, Perhaps he is. I don't remember. Then I had better speak to him and remind him who I am. It's that Mr. Eager. Why did he go? Did we talk too loud? How vexatious. I shall go and say we are sorry. Hadn't I better? Then perhaps he will come back. He will not come back, said George. But Mr. Emerson, contrite and unhappy, hurried away to apologize to Reverend Cutworth Eager. Lucy, apparently absorbed in a lunette, could hear the lecture again interrupted, the anxious, aggressive voice of the old man, the curt, injured replies of his opponent. The son, who took every little contretemps as if it were a tragedy, was listening also. My father has that effect to nearly everyone, he informed her. He will try to be kind. I hope we all try, said she, smiling nervously, because we think it improves our characters. But he is kind to people because he loves them, and they find him out and are offended or frightened. How silly of them, said Lucy, though in her heart she sympathized. I think that a kind action done tactfully, tact. He threw up his head in disdain. Apparently she had given the wrong answer. She watched the singular creature pace up and down the chapel. For a young man, his face was rugged, and until the shadows fell upon it, hard. And shadowed, it sprang into tenderness. She saw him once again at Rome, on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, carrying a burden of acorns. Healthy and muscular, he yet gave her the feeling of greatness, of tragedy that might only find solution in the night. The feeling soon passed. It was unlike her to have entertained anything so subtle. Born of silence and of an unknown emotion, it passed when Mr. Emerson returned, and she could re-enter the world of rapid talk which was alone familiar to her. "Were you snubbed?" asked his son tranquilly. "But we have spoiled the pleasure of I don't know how many people. They won't come back." Full of innate sympathy, quickness to perceive good in others, vision of the brotherhood of man, scraps of the lecture on St. Francis came floating round the partition wall. "Don't let us spoil yours," he continued to Lucy. "Have you looked at those saints?" "Yes," said Lucy, "they are lovely. Do you know which is the tombstone that is praised in Ruskin?"
E ancora una volta grazie all'amico Marco Piovaz, insegnante, docente sia di liceo che universitario a Torino, che ancora una volta ha letto per tutti quanti noi, voi, in lingua inglese, in particolare un altro estratto da A Room with a View, camera con vista. Un altro appuntamento la prossima settimana, ma vi ricordo gli altri, con Lingue Originali il sabato sera alle 22, con Nadia Meroni e sempre con me come facilitatore per quanto riguarda la letteratura in lingua tedesca, e la nostra grande, cara Barbara Marchand la domenica sera alle 22 con la letteratura in lingua francese, quella che io definisco una doppia trasmissione, perché all'inizio la nostra Barbara ci presenta e racconta il profilo umano e letterario dell'autore, e poi ne legge alcune pagine. Da Dario Albertini grazie per l'ascolto, appuntamento alla prossima puntata di Lingue Originali.
Lingue Originali.